It stopped the stream. I don't know if it's going to come back on. I don't know. It says it's streaming. It says it's streaming. I don't know. This is the most wild thing ever. All right. Come on, live. You stupid motherfricka. All right, let's go. There we go. Okay, I'm back. Man, this thing is wild. I don't know what is going on here. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if we're even on the same stream. But whatever. I see you guys' chats, so that's all that matters. That's all that matters. I did go out for a second, and now I came back. All right, there we go. All right. Guys, good to see you. Sorry about that. It was just cutting in and out for me. It wasn't showing me that we were on line. I was in a meeting that ran to a point where I thought I could make it back in time, and I'm sorry for being late for you guys. Today's going to be a pretty good topic. I really, really wanted to hit on this after not yesterday. I always say the other day or yesterday. When we talked about guilt, shame and guilt are brother and sister, right? They're very closely related. And shame is something that I think is another part of the identity. And what happens is when you feel shame in your life, your identity starts to shape with shame because shame doesn't allow you to progress. Shame is not a normal emotion. Shame doesn't come from that. So let's first of all define what we're speaking about today, and then we're going to jump into the next one, okay? So what is shame? Shame involves negatively judging yourself when you believe you failed or live up to your own standards or the standards of others. I think it goes a little deeper than that. We'll keep going. Shame is an emotion that involves negative self-evaluation. So let's stop there. How do you talk to yourself? How do you speak to yourself? And are you always positively or negatively reinforcing yourself? That's going to be the number one thing with shame is shame becomes part of who you are. Shame does not allow for you to have flaws. As a human being, I think shame almost tells you the worst version of anything, which is you're not good enough. You're not worthy. Shame is, it literally will stop you from reaching your destiny. Shame isn't always also part of guilt, right? Shame is not the same thing. So that's why we have to do that. We have connected things, right? Embarrassment can be a part of shame. Guilt can be self-esteem, family dynamics, anxiety. You could feel shame for having anxiety, right? But that's kind of the point is those are all part of it, but let's really dive into shame itself. So let's keep going, okay? You may believe that you haven't lived up to certain standards or feel unworthy. This is where we're hitting on today, unworthy. The unworthiness part of shame causes people in their religions to turn away from God, turn away from belief. Shame will stop people from going back somewhere. Like shame has this way of stopping people from progression. And what I believe it does is it really affects who you are because you can never, ever feel worthy again when you're having shame because shame tells you you deserve to be here. Shame tells you, I think, forward projecting pieces even from the past. So if you have shame, it's almost like, oh, I feel that I deserve a bad life because of this reason, because of this. Shame is very different because guilt keeps you in a place of that specific incident and you can't let it go. Shame is way more take your legs out from under you and cause you to feel like you are a horrible person and sit with it always. Because now the way you look at yourself in the mirror is very different. You start to look at yourself from that one perspective and it bounces back, and the longer it grows and stays, the bigger it gets. Okay. And I really feel that overcoming shame, well, you know what, we'll get to that because I don't want to jump. Okay. Often operates outside of conscious awareness. That's a big point right here. When we realize that shame isn't upfront always. I've been talking to myself a certain way for my whole life. It's not going to change now, right? So you're used to it. You're used to it. And it becomes a part of your identity, right? Let's go down here, right here. The feeling of shame invokes intense discomfort, sometimes a desire to hide. People may feel described as worthlessness, stupid, foolish, inadequate, or less than. And shame can paralyze people, forming the lens, there you go, of all self-evaluation. Everyone who experiences shame occasionally, but some unfortunately are ruled by it. That's why you have to talk about it. It rules people's identities, and it can cause you to, exactly like it talked about, hide out, hide away. Exactly. It becomes who you are, not something in the past. See, guilt can mimic this, but guilt to me and shame is like the worser version of guilt. Shame is the really bottom of the hole because you don't get out of that place. Here you go. There's another point right here. What's the difference between shame and guilt? Shame and guilt are distinct emotions. Guilt arises as a result of an action of someone does or doesn't take. For instance, they may feel regret of not having done something or having done something bad, which can motivate them to change their behavior in the future. On the other hand, shame arises as a result of negative evaluation from others. So that's a great other point. Someone can make you feel ashamed about your clothes, and therefore you don't want to go to school or go to work or do whatever again because of the shame you feel. So that's what we're talking about today, is that kind of thing is I am, like if someone calls you ugly, I am ugly, or I am this, it becomes identity, right? That is the result of the individual that doesn't feel, the result is that the individual doesn't feel bad about a particular action, but about themselves as a whole. There you go. And then here we go. Now we're going to go to how to overcome shame. So consistent shame can have insidious consequences, but is possible to overcome this difficult feeling. The first step is to identify shame. Given that it can be largely unconscious, identifying, labeling, and monitoring shame are crucial steps in resolving it. So we always go back to the number one thing you have to do with your emotions is start to identify what am I feeling? And it's a hard process to do, because even today, when I was driving this morning and my wife and I were on the way to the gym, there was just these feelings, and I'm wondering how to name them always, because that's the first thing. You can't fight an enemy you can't see, right? You can't do anything about that. If you can't see them, you cannot fight them, right? That would be a rule of thumb in the world. But if you can identify what you're against, then you can make a plan of attack. Very simple way that I can explain it. I know it sounds a little bit more military. That's kind of how my mind works a lot of times. It's like military things. But you can't fight the hidden enemy. You have to identify it first. You can explore feelings of shame with a therapist, a friend, or in a journal. I think those are great ways to do it. I think journaling is a lot more healing than probably a lot of people think, just because journaling has a way of allowing you to truly express yourself, right? Like pen to paper is powerful. I think people underestimate the power of writing something down versus typing it versus anything else. Like writing is just powerful. It truly is. Resolving shame often involves the practice of self-compassion. Huge thing to do. The problem is shame is going to combat you loving yourself, and it's going to stop you from allowing yourself to believe that you deserve any kind of love, right? Self-compassion can improve the way you see ourselves and quiet our inner critic. You gotta understand, having self-criticism can be healthy, but when your critic talks to you like your worst enemy, and it's literally the other part of you, and it's the hurt and broken part of you that's speaking to who you are and your identity, now that inner critic is too loud. It's too much, and it's it's not going to get you where you need. It's not giving you evaluations now. That self-critic is now becoming the enemy to you. Like talking to you worse than any other enemy you'd ever have would. So that's where we need to make this distinction, right? Having a self-critic is not necessarily a bad thing, and everybody has it. It's, are you talking to yourself correctly? Are you speaking to yourself with love and compassion? Because I'll tell you two things. Any experiment that comes with negative and positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement usually is a very, it's not the best way to get people to do things. And positive reinforcement usually will show you, like even the plants. Have you guys ever heard this experiment? I don't know how long it is. So this is very raw and it's just information. I don't have the nail down, but they did an experiment where they literally talked to plants. And it's actually low-key funny because one of the people would talk to the plants crazy, like cuss at it and crazy stuff, I guess, or talk bad to it, like I'm sure a lot of our inner critics do. And the other plant was spoken over positively. Well, they literally grew differently. The negative plant was not thriving. I don't know if it died because I can't remember, but it was like the one that they actually spoke life into actually started to flourish. We'll have to look this experiment up. But if we can't break down the simplicity of a plant receiving words, right? And just how powerful your voices are, right? Like we literally have in our merch shop right now, because I wanted you to have something for you that says my voice matters, because that's exactly why we do these conversations. Like shame will stop you from talking. Shame will stop you. That's the crazy part about shame is it's a self silence. I put myself in a box because I feel like I deserve to be here and I'm going to stay here and I deserve this and blah, blah. It's a self assassination. And so that's why it's so important to have a conversation about it, because if you keep going down the wrong side of how we're supposed to identify what's important mentally, then you can start to be overly positive. We've talked about that. We've talked about being overly negative. It really is about learning the balance between everything in your life. Everything has to find a flow and a rhythm. And I know exactly. I've never spoken to someone the way that I've talked to myself before. No one has ever heard that venom that I've had for myself cast onto them. So I'll just give you that personal insight now. I've never talked to anybody the way I've talked to myself before. And it's because you know yourself so well and you do have an inner voice that you have to start thinking about how powerful that inner voice is. What I would love to do is I always try to make things practical. As an exercise, I would want us to start to think about how we can encourage ourselves more often. So I'll tell you two things. I'm going to be really blunt, and this is a great example for everybody. If I'm at the gym and I am struggling with a set and I tell myself, you idiot, get the weight up, do this, you little, start cussing myself out. It's not as effective as when I'm in my head and I say, you got this. I know you can do this rep. I'm going to knock this out. I'm knocking this out. There's more of a determination. It's the same problem, different avenues of how you deal with that problem. And that is always going to be life. And so the way you speak to yourself is going to determine a lot of times the outcome. And I understand that negative reinforcement can bring results, but it's not going to be effective and it's actually going to be more hurtful. So a lot of the fuel is pain rather than positive, thought, positive reinforcement, right? I'll give you another example. If you are someone who likes, sports and this and that, you can use the pain that you have to give you fuel, right? A lot of athletes have this, right? You have athletes who've come out and said, I needed someone to say something so I could go. And they would take that negative conversation or whatever the case is. Michael Jordan is notorious for this, by the way, and use it to perform better. Okay. It's kind of a sick way to do it, but the point is you can turn the negatives into positives, especially as you're learning to talk to yourself better, to remove the shame off of your life. And the number one way to do that is, have you ever actually given yourself any grace? Right? Is there a place where you can say, and just like the movie, man, this is why it's so important to watch Good Will Hunting, is it really your fault? And then if you can take the responsibility and figure that out, then you can kind of separate, where does this go? See, it's all about categorization. Where do I put this? I'm feeling this, but I also have all these other feelings about these things. And at some point you just get so overwhelmed. And then you start thinking about the past. And I'm not trying to ever make it sound like everything's just going to be perfect. These are the actual practical steps of you breaking down your own emotions and feelings in your own mind and start to put things where they belong so you can function on a daily basis where your mind isn't being, just, what's that word when the horses tie you up and split you? I know that's graphic, but that's what a lot of people's brains probably do every single day, is when they tie you up and all the horses run opposite ways and you're everywhere, and it's hurting you, and shame's not serving you. It's not giving you fuel. Shame is causing you to stay and want to keep burying yourself further down. And this is where I think a lot of times, like we talked about, shame doesn't have to be self-inflicted, right? This isn't just this is self-infliction of shame. We're talking about someone making you feel ashamed about something. And I struggled with the same thing, right? Like, I felt ashamed because I thought that I didn't save my family. And when people would say that back in the day, I would be so upset because I already felt ashamed and felt like I was supposed to protect them. And then people would bring that out, and it was the Achilles heel for me. Like, it would always upset me because they knew exactly what to say, and they knew that it would hurt, and they knew that they were just stopping by to say it. But I took it very personally because I was ashamed, and I had a lot of survivor's guilt, which we talked about. Like, I had so many problems with my own stuff. So when people said things like that, I took it very, very deeply. And that's just the truth. Like, I didn't know how to deal with that. And so that shame, though, makes you think, like, once you just want to be like, I'm never going outside. I'm not going outside. Like, I'm not going to, and you guys know, like, who were here in like 2020 or whatever year it was, we had like our YouTube videos. Like, I've never, ever, ever wanted to do YouTube ever again. I just did it, and I just didn't care. And I said, F all of this. I'm just being honest with you. Like, F everything in this. I'm not doing YouTube. I'm not going to put my story out there. I'm not going to do any of this. Like, I'm just going to move on with my life. I'm not going to put up with this. And here we are. Like, that was not the plan. And I knew that I felt like I was meant to help people with things I've struggled with. I'm not the only one that's ever felt shame. And I'm talking about real shame. And that's why we're here today, is that these conversations are not talked about enough. And this is stuff that people feel every day. And you know what? Unfortunately, I don't see the school system, and this is not a knock on the school system, but kids aren't learning this in school. This isn't having in a daily conversation. We probably know more about what a celebrity did at an event or wore to a premiere than we do know about our own selves and about how we feel and about feelings and how to deal with things, right? How much more do you know about other things than like how to live, right? Practicality and application. That's kind of why I think these conversations need to continue. And I really pray, like, if you're feeling shame today, just know that like, you need to start looking at your life to say, is this fruitful? How does this serve me? And this isn't about being selfish. This is about, we talk about not just surviving, but thriving. If you're going to thrive, is what you're thinking about from the past or projecting to the future serving you to your best, right? And then that's it. Okay, so then what do you do about it, right? For me, it's been therapy, identifying feelings, listening to other People talk about this stuff, trying to research these topics. And that's the thing. When you identify something, the hidden enemy becomes into light. We talked about this the other day with guilt. When you're in a scary movie, or like with Jaws, it's scarier to not see the shark, but just the fin. Or it's scarier to think that the shark's in the water. I used to jump in the pool and think the shark was going to get me. Okay, I'm going to be even more blunt. When I was 4 years old, we went to Universal Studios and we saw the Jaws. We were on the tour and the Jaws ride, and I was on the edge and I got pushed over the edge just a little bit as the Jaws shark was coming out. And it scared me so bad that I slept with my legs crisscross applesauce for like, I think years, because I thought Jaws was going to come out the toilet and bite the end of the bed off. So if my legs were crisscrossed, he couldn't get my legs. That is how scared I was as a kid, just to give you an example. But irrational thought, correct? But I lived around that as a kid. And if I would have had the skills at the time, it would have been so nice to break down the practicality of Jaws coming out the toilet and then swimming through the rug, but whatever. That's not how I thought. So this is back to square one. Identify the feeling, realize if it's serving you. And you always see these movies where somebody's struggling with something. And the biggest issue at the end is, okay, are you going to let it go? And that's the hardest part about it. Letting go is not what everybody thinks letting go is. Right? Bearing your scars later in your life because of what you've been through doesn't mean you just said, okay, I'm going to let this go and I'm never going to think about it again. That's not letting go, right? This isn't Elsa up on the thing hiding away in her tower. That wasn't the answer. Okay? I love pulling movie references because people have seen these movies. When Elsa runs away and builds her little castle, she just isolated herself. That wasn't the answer, but she thought it was the answer. So she thought she was letting go. But it didn't do anything other than isolate her and put her in that position. It's very simple. It goes back to square one. Identify how you feel and then realize, is this serving me? This is how you start doing your own self-help before you're in a place where you might be able to get into therapy. Because I was years where I couldn't go to therapy. And I know therapy can be expensive and all that stuff. So I want you to understand that I hope this doesn't sound insensitive. I really hope this doesn't sound insensitive. Just know this is coming from someone who really understands, but you have so much more tools than you think you do today. You have so much more that you could actually apply than maybe you can see. And that's the hardest part, is identifying what you can do with it. And I always think this to myself: if I could be a third person and come to myself and say, help myself in that time, I realize what I would say to myself. And I realize I could tell you, hey, this hole is here. And guess what? It's not going to get any smaller. The hole's going to get bigger. All the things you feel aren't going to go away. So you have two options: stay in this hole, or get up and keep trying to figure out how to live with this. Okay. Or a better example, carrying the load. You're going to have this. This is just what it is. This is your life. This is it. There's no what ifs. And I'm going to do a whole video on what ifs, but I always talk about this with you guys. The what if scenarios are screwing your life. They're screwing you up. Well, what if I had a better parent? What if I had this? What if I just had this? You don't have it. You don't. And I'm not being rude. I love you. I care about you. But you don't have it. So guess what? What if doesn't serve you a freaking thing today? What serves you is your baby steps and what I'm going to do next today, right now. I can't tell you what I'm doing in 3 hours. Okay. I can't tell you, do I know I'm going to have to pee at some point? Sure. I can theorize. I'm sure I'll have to pee. But why would I think about having to pee when I don't have to pee until it happens? I try to break it down as simple as I can. It's not about worrying about what possibly could happen. That is what anxiety is. Well, I might have to pee. Yeah, but you don't have to pee right now. So don't worry about it. That worrying is not an answer to your problem. And I know we're talking about shame, but all of these things, as you look, if we go back up on our page here and you look at this stuff, connected topics, look at this: embarrassment, guilt, self-esteem, family dynamics. You could even go on, guys, if you want to go on Psychology Today, here's a test for you: shame test and a guilt test. This is the kind of practicality that I'm talking about, that there are things we could start doing now that could just help us realize where we're at. Talking your feelings out, however you express your feelings, right? Music, all that stuff. It's good for you to start doing something to let them filter through. You know, if you have a good person to talk to or not, you know, talk your feelings out, write your feelings down in your notes. There's ways to do this. There's ways to start to filter through it, but it has to be some kind of effort. I don't want it to sound like work, but it does have some kind of effort that you need to put into it. But it's worth it. You're worth it, right? So I'm not trying to rush you out of everything, but I don't want you to be ashamed or feel shame, because it's not an emotion. It's a feeling, and it doesn't come from a good place, right? If it's not serving you, it's not you can feel something, and it should. And this is how I look at life. If you screw up, your next point in your life should be, okay, I learned from that, and now I'm going to go forward. I'm going to do something positive, and I'm going to learn from that. And that's how I see you actually progressing. I've never progressed by saying, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe this. I can't believe you're that dumb. I can't believe, like, all those things have never served a single day of my life. I've never gotten better from that. I got better every time I said, I learned this lesson, but guess what? I'm going to keep going. I learned. I understand now. I'm going to look at that situation for what it was, and I'm going to take a progressive step forward. And you know what? Even if I screw up again, I'm still going to, that's not who I am, right? Identity needs to be separated from all of these things. You need to learn who you are and then what your feelings are. And that's a whole nother topic, but identity, you need to find out what your identity is, because feelings go up and down. You're going to feel like you want a Chipotle burrito, and they're going to realize Chipotle fell off. Just the truth. And then maybe you want chicken. Those are just the moment. That moment shouldn't define you as a person. And that's what's so sad, though, is that when you don't know your identity, you don't know who you are, you're not strong in yourself, you go and you let people make you feel bad about something. Right? Look at your clothes. Look at your hair, your teeth. Who cares? There are obviously people who spend their time criticizing to that level have serious issues. Like they're so unhappy, because guess what? Happy people don't run around doing that. And even some unhappy people don't run around doing that. But they're just pricks, and they're having a bad day, and they don't want to get better. So it's a choice. I hate to make it sound, your circumstances are not a choice always. Let me not make it that way. Your circumstances are not your choice. How you respond to your life is a choice. That is what I want to leave you with today. And it's so much more of a choice than you think, because our brains are powerful, and they can do good things for us or they can do horrible things for us. But it really is a choice. And sometimes you make the wrong choice, and that's still okay. You make a wrong choice. That's the whole point about moving forward with the lesson. Take it for what it is and keep moving forward, right? What's the movie from Disney? Their motto in the movie is keep moving forward. Meet the Robinsons. Keep moving forward. Just keep swimming like Dory. You want me to keep going? How many kids movies do we need to pull out? Because the thing about it is it's that simple. It is that simple. We don't want to believe it's as simple as it really is, but I don't know how to deal with this situation. This is out of my hands. I'm out of control, and I can't change this. I can't do anything about it. So then what are you going to do? Right? Just sit there and just get destroyed and freeze, and it gets worse, and you build it up in your head, and now the boogeyman's 100 feet tall when he's really not. It really is really just getting worse for people every day, and it's causing so much more issues in your life than you deserve to have. So just really take your time to start thinking about how to identify. That's a great point. You're allowed to have bad days, just don't make it your home. It's a great point. Don't set up camp. It's a journey, and that's the point. People get stuck because those feelings are real. Shame is powerful. It truly is. But there's freedom to that as well. Guilt is powerful. There's freedom to that. These negative emotions can be really strong. And I understand how they'll can knock you off your butt. But it really is, okay, I'm going to get back up. And even if it takes me some time, I'm going to regain my strength and I'm going to get back up and I'm going to take that next step. And I'm not going to overthink what happened back there. Because guess what? If I project what I think is going to happen in the future because I fell down back there, oh, what if I fall down up there? That's all I'm going to worry about. And that's going to take away all the peace of the moment. I might fall later down the path. I might slip. I might screw up. That's counterproductive, getting you nowhere. You don't know you're going to slip yet. You're not Mr. What's his name? Doctor Strange with your time stone zoomer. Okay. This isn't the Chad Daybell world where we're all made up characters. Your life's going to go on and you're going to have to make the best of what you've got today. And that's what you get. And it's not a hard, harsh anyway. Like, we have what we have, and our choices to anything are about us. There is a lot we can't control. That's not what we're talking about here. But we are talking about how we deal with our problems. And I want to tie this back to one other thing. I just made a video about Sarah Henderson, and I was listening to some of these other videos that had covered her after I made the video, and I was like, whoa, like, this is crazy, because a lot of them were talking about her mental health, and obviously it wasn't right. But imagine if a lot of these things happened where people were able to deal with this stuff. Maybe it's trauma from your past or as a kid or from whatever part of your life, and that trauma projected to their future, and now their future is a result of the past. Is that going to be a good excuse at the end of it all? Well, hey, I had a really effed up childhood, so I'm a really effed up person. I'm just asking a question. Is that going to help us? No, it's going to affect us. There's going to be an effect. We don't have to be perfect. But is it like, oh, well, I really went through a lot, and so now I did this thing because I never dealt with that. That's really the difference. And if you really break it down, that's the difference between a lot of the stuff we see in this world. It's just the mental health side. And we're seeing these parents do these things to their own children because of how they feel. They feel bad, so they do it to their kids. They're hurting, so they hurt their kids. And I know, I hate that saying, hurt people hurt people. I tell you that all the time because I don't like that. It is a choice. You don't have to hurt people because you got hurt. That's stupid. Is there some law that I missed where it's like, okay, if you're hurting, you better go hurt someone else? No, I understand it's not coming from that kind of place, but still. Just know that your life, you have one thing you can truly, truly control, and that is you. And when a situation presents itself, the only thing you can do is respond to it. And that's it. That is life. That is what we get. That is our power. Trying to force other people, trying to do this, trying to do that, it's not going to do anything. You can't control the next hour of your life. And that surrender is going to put a lot of people through a lot more peace. So back to real quick, just to say the last thing, just shame has no place in your life. It's not going to serve you. It's not going to help you. It's not a positive or good thing for your life. So we identified shame. We worked through all of it. I hope you guys really got something good from this. I did too, even just talking to you guys about it. I have been a victim of shame. I have, oh my gosh, like it has really hurt me. And I've stayed in places over these things and just tortured myself and replayed them in my mind. So let's get better. Let's get better. That should be our motto on this channel. Let's get better every day, one step at a time, and let's help others get better. and let's invite people to this community so they can see this stuff. There's more people that I know need to see this stuff. These subjects are just uncomfortable, and I get that. This isn't for everybody, but it is for everybody. These topics are for everybody because, unfortunately, this just isn't something that people want to always watch, and I get that because this is deep dives on our feelings, and that's called vulnerability, and it sucks. It sucks to be vulnerable and have your heart out there. So that's just what life unfortunately is. And I hope we can get some people to join our community, especially a lot of the people who are dealing with these anxieties and depressions. I really hope we're getting to them. So if you know somebody that you could share this video with, do it, please. And let them know that if they just want to be a silent watcher, cool. If they want to be a part of our community, bring them in. They're welcome here. This is about tackling real life stuff. So I really hope it helps you. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Appreciate you guys, and you guys have my love. I'll give you guys a new update. I have an update for you guys on our community tab coming up, and then going into Christmas, I'll let you know what our video schedules will be like. We'll have some videos for you guys coming out around this time. But obviously, I know everybody's doing their holidays, so I hope everyone has a good holiday, and I'll keep you guys up to date on the community tab.